Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Thermaltake Tower 500. Now there have been a lot of iterations of this style case, but it does come with the support of full ATX, quite a few quite a few radiator options that you can put inside, some very quirky fan layout stuff that I've quite frankly not been entirely able to get my head around, which I will talk to you about when we work our way through our latest review. So we always start at the top and at the front, and today will be no different. And here you can see right in the middle have your power button, then you have a reset to this side. They've gone with a separate headphone and microphone port, 4 USB 3s and then a Type C. And if I professionally raise the camera up, it helps if I undo things on the tripod. You can see that there is a bit of mesh on the top, and you can pop said mesh off to reveal what's underneath. But I'm going to move the case to show you. So with the case actually on its front now, we can see the roof, and you can see how you can remove the top panel and then you have mesh underneath. I have to say, if I was going to be running this, I probably would remove this mesh just so that there was slightly better airflow, and technically you shouldn't have too many problems about dust falling in if you're running your PC quite often. Now, because the case is weirdly inverted, you can see the I/O here and then your expansion covers up here, and you can also see from the roof that you have numerous ways to mount things in the roof. Now this does include 120mm fans and 140mm fans, but that does also include radiators that you can pop on the other side as well, because you can see there's quite a big drop on this section, so effectively there's a lot of room between where your graphics card's going to be and the top of the case. We will cover that in more detail later. Can see there's some like grommets that you can poke through, and then there is access round the back. So the grommets are there, and then at the top you can see there's access down into the back panel, but that's more for radiating airflow. But talking of back panel and airflow, you can come round to the back now with the case righted, so just so that you can get your bearings, front of case, side of case, rear of case. There is a dust filter around here, magnetic, quite basic. I'm always pulling it off by mistake, and there are 2 thumb screws at the top that are retained, and when you pop those off, it shows us the back of the case. Now you can see that you have 2 fans behind the motherboard exhausting out through that mesh. Okay, there are mounts here and here for 2 2.5 inch solid state drives or hard drives, and then on the other side of that there is a mount for a single 3.5 inch on each of those. So 2 2.5 inch, 1 3.5 inch, 2 2.5 inch, 1 3.5 inch. Down at the bottom is where the power supply goes, but what we can do, if you so wish, is, and I'm going to need my screwdriver because one is tight, you can pop those thumb screws off and you can remove it completely. And this means that I can show you the other side. So you've got your couple of fan mounts, 120mm fans, 140mm fans, 92mm fans. You can swap them in and out. Hard drive mounts as well. And obviously, if you don't want to use the fans, all those hard drive mounts, you can just remove it. And there is a fair bit of room around the back of the case, actually. Now, I just want to cover this very quickly. There are a few kind of folds around the back of the case because they add these folds in for strengthening, and you can see that they fold backwards, and those bends give us strength like this one here, you can see that there's a few millimeters that pokes out, and but you've got the power supply mount below it. Now I do just want to, and I'll cover this in more depth in a bit, show you that if it wasn't for those folds, you could get power supply in the back, and it really is quite very close, and there's not a great deal in it. And I think a few millimeters or maybe some time with a Dremel, you could put power supply like that. But again, I will cover this in more depth as to why in a moment. When working with the rest of the case, we do have to take the top off. But I do just want to say very quickly that it's 608 millimeters tall. It is 388 millimeters wide, and then it is 398 millimeters deep. So that is your overall sizing. Now, when it comes to the glass panels, they don't pop or anything, and what you do have to do is remove the top panel completely and place it to one side, and then the side panels can be removed. They get lifted up. Now, when you do lift them up to remove them, it is very simple, and the latching mechanism afterwards is quite basic but relatively sturdy as well. One of the nice touches, and I'll explain why you might want to do it in a moment, is you can reverse or invert the panels. Admittedly, I don't like the fact that you can see down the back, and I have left the rear panel off for the minute, but you can move the mesh panel to the front. And again, I will explain why you might want to do this in a moment. And it's exactly the same with the other side. They are invertible, reversible, exchangeable. You can do what you like. Front comes off as well. So you can remove all the panels if you wish to gain access to your build for building process. Yeah, so you can build it, or you might want to go nuts, but they can be removed really easily. Now you can see that we have plenty of grommets around the side and on the bottom. I did think it was a shame that they didn't pop some more grommets at the top on the other side, because you can see these open sections here. You'd have your 8-pin CPU power come through this side, and maybe CPU cable fans. I actually meant CPU cooler fans maybe poking through here. But anyway, I thought it would have been nice if they had have grommeted those. You can also see that there's access here around the back. Again, little grommets would have been nice. Also, because of all the grommetry down the side and down here, did think that it might have been nice to have put them in this top plate section, which we're going to focus on now. Now, this top plate section, as you can see, you can poke lots of cables through. There are lots of rubber grommets on there as well, but there are mounts on here for 120mm and 140mm fans, should you want to use it to push air up. Now, there aren't very many or any direct intake fan points that aren't kind of hindered. So these, I would say, are fairly important fan mounts for you to be able to get airflow in if you're going to be building an air case. Now, you can remove these sections should you wish. They are a couple of screws, and quite literally, once you've done it, they lift out. And you can see the grommet sections here, and they can be completely removed. If you do this, it opens up an absolute cavern of space underneath. Now, when you have removed the top section, you can also quite simply, by removing a thumb screw, remove the lower panels on the side as well, and they both come off. And again, this opens up this cavernous area underneath. Now, what I did want to show you is there is room down here for you to be able to mount copious amounts of radiators, should you wish. Now it does look rather big with 240mm rad in the bottom, and it does say that you can't fit a 360 in there. And it is in the manual as well. It's 120mm times 2. You can see radiators, 240 if we move them. But I will, because the 240mm radiator did look like it was quite small in there, but you could fit 3 fans in the bottom if you were okay with a Dremel, but a radiator, because of the end tanks, is just slightly out of reach. So for any of you out there that were thinking that, fans, 3 fans, yes, 100% you could mod for 3 fans, but the radiators are just out of touch. Now this mount here can also be inverted to go over as an intake, which is quite a nice touch. But if it was me, have to admit that I would go about things in a slightly different way in the lower section of this case. Now they want you to have your power supply here with all the cables here, and I personally think that with all your cables here, you've then instantly got to move your cables round to take them up behind the case. So it seems a bit messy and a bit overly complicated, when in reality what you could have done is, as I've said before, have the power supply mounted downwards, and you can get 90-degree lower cables as well, so it wouldn't be a problem. Or in reality, if you were really worried about it, you could have it mounted out the side, but it's going to require moving some parts around. I actually think this is something they should have done, but a decent modder would be able to cope with getting this sorted at home. If I'm completely honest, I'd be half tempted, because you're never going to see it, having the power supply kind of cut out of the back section, because there's a cutout here anyway, as you can see, so it wouldn't be too much of a stretch of the imagination to have it cut that little bit more, and then you could have your power supply in the back. Now, I like doing stuff like this because I like making cases my own, so it could be something you guys could do at home. And if Thermaltake want to send this back to me because they want it back, I'm actually going to do this because I think it kind of needs doing. Anyway, so we've sorted our power supply problem round on this section, and then what that means is you can easily, if you should so wish, have some extra radiators going on. Now you don't have to have them front and back. You could, if you were to take this section out, which could come off with a screw, you could have them front and side, so you could have them as intakes, and then you could have your pumps and reservoirs in the middle, which I think would be kind of nice. And then you can have a big cooling area down in the bottom, and you'd be able to view it all in here. So you can have it on intake, nice crazy reservoir or something going on with your pump, and then your water cooling section. And you could have that, I think, quad fans, and you could easily have 60mm radiators in here with fans, and then a pump and stuff in the middle. Maybe a crazy reservoir coming up here that you can see all your coolant in, and then your pipes coming out from that. So lots and lots of options in the bottom if you sort the power supply out. And I don't think the power supply is that big a deal to get working. Now the case comes with these 2 mounting brackets, and said mounting brackets can be mounted over here for a 360mm radiator, and that's why you can flip the window and move the mesh panel over here. Now the way that these brackets mount, and you can mount them this side or this side, although if you were brave, in reality you could just forget about the poor airflow kind of going on in the bottom and just have a up and down, side to side kind of setup over here, where you could have intake at the bottom and then outtake, or whatever way round that you wanted to go, radiator one side, fans on the other side. You could do that quite easily if they sell these separately, but I need to find out from Thermaltake if they do. I'd like to think they did, but they don't mount in a way that I thought made any sense. So you have screw holes in the top, and there are some screw holes in your bottom, and you will see that the thread is already poked right the way through. Now I straight away thought this was a bit weird, but what you do is you have the screws mounted in the top of the case up here, and you screw down, and then I've just scratched the case and this is why it's really annoying that I've genuinely just scratched the case with that thread that hangs out. Yeah, brilliant, Tom. Sorry, I actually want this back. Yes, they do take stuff back. Okay, right, so the thread that pokes out, you have to put it in that grommet, right? I'm not even joking. And it just sits there and it's held there by that grommet. And then you put 2 screws in the roof. So 2 screws up here, and then that thread just pokes into the rubber grommet. That is it, okay? And then on the other side, I'm going to put the thread in first, and then that is how you would have them in there, should you screw them in the top and they were fixed. But this really bothered me, because even when they are screwed in at the top, the grommet, it doesn't make any sense to me why you would just poke a screw through and then that's it, fixed. Especially when you can do this. And this is going to make some of you laugh. So I'm going to take the screw out of the bottom. That just pokes through. To gain access, I'm just going to remove this lower panel like that. Now I'm keeping the thumb screw to hand. There are no spare thumb screws in the pack, but I'm just going to show you that one of their own thumb screws I am going to use. And then it's almost like I have fixed the top like I said I would, and then I take the thumb screw and I put it through the grommet, and then I screw the thumb screw like that, and then I fixed the bottom through the grommet with their own thumb screw. So it is now actually fixed, rather than there being just a thread poking through a grommet instead. So this is how they wanted you to do it, like that, with the thread poking through and then it not actually being fixed. And then with one of their own thumb screws, I've actually put it in the bottom, and it's actually quite rigid. You need to remember, I've not even screwed it in at the top yet, but it is much better mounted, and I genuinely cannot believe Thermaltake didn't do this of their own accord. It baffles me, to the point, I will be completely honest with you guys, when I saw this in the diagrams and everything, I rang Thermaltake, because I genuinely thought I had misunderstood, and nope, that's how they want you to fit it. Right, thumb screws, boys. Now, I've shown you those parts, and it does mean that you can easily mount a 360mm radiator this side and a 360mm radiator this side. And the size of the radiator is really just going to depend how much you want it to encroach. This is a 60mm thick. Admittedly, I don't have a 30mm thick 360 to hand, but you can see how much you get there if you've got a thin 30mm thick radiator and a single set of fans. Obviously, you can have them either way around, so you've got the idea there. And obviously, you can put quite a lot of cooling in the bottom as well. And there is also mounts in the roof to be able to put fans in the roof, including a radiator, which goes to the side of the I/O port, which I showed you when we were around the other side. So you can, there's many options. If you were to have thin radiators, you could have a 240 in the roof, a 360 in the side, and a 360 in the side, and technically another 240 in the bottom for crazy levels of radiator space, cooling space, however you want to put it. Mental. Now I can tell there are already people shouting at the screen, why didn't you build in it? And it was because in reality, if I had have filled it up with hardware, I'd have had taken half of it out to have been able to show you the points I wanted to raise anyway. And also, when it does come to building one of these, I always put the same hardware in it so that I can test it as I do with all the other cases. And because this only really comes with the 2 fans in the back, it wasn't going to test very well. There's so many options that you can move and place things within this every time you were going to make a change. For me, it would take me another couple of hours of testing, to the point I probably could have spent a week changing configurations on this and adding stuff, and I don't have that sort of time spare to dedicate on a single case. Now, I personally do think that this is a very well thought out case, and they have tried to give you a lot of options. I do think they've missed a couple of really easy things though, like with the power supply, for example, that could have easily have been incorporated into the original design process. But at the end of the day, if you are worried about airflow with this, you can have mounts in the sides and have through flow with 320mm fans, very easy. When you do that, I'm not keen about being able to see round the back of the motherboard tray. If you're looking dead on your case, or it's a bit on the wonk as in wonky, on an angle, then I don't really see it as being too much of a problem. The mount with the radiator mounts for the side, not coming with that thumb screw and just having a thread poking out to go into a grommet, feels a bit janky to me. It feels like they've just kind of, I don't even get it. It just doesn't make sense. Because it's such a simple thing, I don't understand why a big case manufacturer wouldn't do it. Thumb screw. I don't know. I don't like the fact that it's just a thread poking out though, because as I've shown you, I've scratched it, and I didn't actually mean to do it, but I scratched it fitting it, and it just feels a bit of a bodge. It's kind of like, I will do that and we'll sort it later, not in the sort of thing that you're going to be paying or wanting people to pay for a product. But this could actually, it's got so many options on it. It is the sort of thing where it's going to come down to your imagination. It's also kind of why I didn't see the point in spending ages testing on it, because there are so many things that you can do and change and move around and play with at home. Each one of those is going to be an impact, an upgrade, or a change on the airflow. I genuinely don't see the point in having the fans around the back though. They said it made a difference with case temps, with motherboard temps. Yes, okay, but surely the most important thing is to have airflow on the other side. I really don't see the point in having them around here at all. With the hard drives and stuff, kind of get it, fair enough. Little bit of airflow for the hard drives, yes, okay, but they don't need acres, like acres of airflow going through there. And firing it at the back of the PCI Express, again, I just don't see the point. But, that's just a personal thing. If I had this at home, wouldn't be running fans around here. I'd just be concentrating my time with airflow. And then this section around here, I'd have really nice cables, like I said, or try and make them nice and tidy. And then just kind of leave it, really. So, yeah. Fans in there if you want, fans in the tray if you want, fans in the side if you want. There are plenty of places that you can put and add extra fans. Oh, in the roof as well. So you can have an awful lot of airflow going on. And then this is obviously the sort of thing where you're really, really going to be showing your hardware off. So it's going to mean that you are going to need to get a little bit artistic rather than just throwing things in. This is one for those of you out there like me that like things to look pretty and be on show and on display. You just need to also be aware though that it is, because it's kind of square based, it is going to take up a fair bit of space. But I do think that when placed in the corner of a desk or a table or something, it is a very, very nice way to view your the money that you've spent. So the things that you've kind of invested in. It's viewing your investment. That's the word I was trying to look for before. So they've done a very nice job, but they also could have quite easily made it even better, I think personally, and tidied up a few things that do feel like they've been forgotten with that bolt and that thread. But that is my review of the Thermaltake Tower 500. This has been Tiny Tom Logan, and I will be back with another video for you very soon. Ding! Love you, sis.